If you really break it down, there's only one thing that sets lasting relationships apart, and it's probably not what you think. What if I told you that one of the biggest predictors of a successful relationship isn't something flashy? It's not how you met, it's not the crazy coincidences, or not even the faded romance. Rather, it's something that sits at a quiet corner and rises to the occasion when called upon. And that's the ability to change one's mind. It sounds a little strange, right? We tend to admire people who are confident and who stand in their beliefs. But in a relationship, the ability to listen, learn, and shift your perspective is one of the biggest green flags you can find. Because let's be real, relationships aren't about keeping score or proving who's right, or at least they shouldn't be. They're about actually hearing each other and figuring things out together. I'm Jordan Travers, a licensed therapist, and today we're talking about why this one trait can make or break your relationship. So let's get into it. Let's be honest, we've all had those frustrating moments where someone just refuses to budge. Maybe it's your dad insisting that turning the Wi Fi off makes the internet reset, or your friend who won't watch a show just because everyone says it's good. And no amount of logic, evidence, or discussion is going to change their mind. Now imagine that same level of stubbornness, but in your relationship. You tell your partner something they did really hurt you, and instead of hearing you out, they brush it off, saying, "You're overreacting." You suggest a different way to handle money, parenting, or conflict, and instead of considering it, they shut it down. "No, that's not how I do things." That kind of stubbornness, it turns every conversation into a dead end. On the flip side, a flexible partner, the kind who listens, reflects, and is willing to adapt, creates a relationship that actually works. And what makes that possible? Well, it comes down to four key traits, four questions you should ask yourself. Question one: can they adjust when life does? Let's say you and your partner have a Saturday morning coffee tradition. One day, the cafe is packed, and you suggest trying a new place. A rigid partner would insist, "No, we always go here, so let's just wait." A flexible partner would say, "Sure, let's check it out. Maybe we'll find a new favorite." It might seem small, but it reveals something much bigger: how they handle change. Put simply, cognitive flexibility is the ability to adapt when things don't go as planned. It means being open to new ideas, different ways of doing things, and even reconsidering long held beliefs. In relationships, this determines how well a couple can navigate challenges and grow together. Now, apply this to emotional conversations. You tell them, "Hey, that joke actually hurts my feelings." A rigid partner would brush it off, saying, "You're too sensitive." A flexible partner would pause and say, "I didn't realize that. I'll be more mindful." That's cognitive flexibility in action, not just hearing you, but adjusting based on what they've learned. And that's a big deal because hearing and understanding aren't the same thing. A lot of people listen just to respond, but then keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's not real change. That's just passive listening. Active listening happens when a partner, a flexible one, actually takes in what you're saying. They process it, they integrate new information into the way they think and act, and in short, they are open to change. Question two: do they let their ego take a back seat? Have you ever been in an argument where the other person just won't back down, even when they know they're wrong? Maybe they start twisting the conversation, bringing up unrelated things, or throwing the blame back at you. Suddenly, what started as a simple discussion turns into an all out battle where the goal isn't understanding, it's winning. And that's what happens when someone's ego takes the wheel. Some people treat admitting a mistake like stepping on a landmine. The moment they feel even slightly wrong, their defenses go up. But a truly emotionally mature person doesn't let their pride override the relationship. They know that accountability doesn't make them weak, it makes them stronger. So, to assess this, Think about how they handle feedback. If you say, hey, what you did or what you said really hurt me. Now, if your partner is defensive, he or she'll likely snap back. Oh, so I'm the bad guy. Well, just so you know, you do it too. A mature partner, on the other hand, would take a deep breath and say, I didn't realize that. I'll do better. It's a small difference in words, but a huge difference in mindset if you really think about it. Because at that moment, what's really happening isn't just a conversation, it's a test on how emotionally safe the relationship is. When someone reacts defensively, they're not just reacting to the specific feedback, they're sending a much bigger message. Your feelings don't matter as much as mine need to be right. And over time, that builds resentment. You may start hesitating before bringing things up. You may start feeling like you need to walk on eggshells because that's easier than being honest. But when someone pauses, listens, and says, I didn't realize that, I'll do better, it completely shifts the dynamic. Because here's the thing, that one sentence, just a few words, signals that your feelings are valid and that your partner values your perspective and that they're willing to adjust instead of out. Question 3. Are they willing to evolve? Have you noticed how you feel when you try learning something new? Some people get frustrated at the first mistake and give up, whereas others take a breath, adjust, and try again. Psychologist Carol Dweck calls this a growth mindset, the belief that abilities, intelligence, and even emotional skills can be developed with effort. In relationships, this means your partner doesn't just assume that love is about finding a perfect person. Instead, they believe in becoming a better partner over time. Now, that might sound obvious, of course. People should want to improve in relationships, but in reality, not everyone does. Some people see love as something that should be effortless. If things get tough, they assume it's because the relationship is wrong, rather than seeing challenges as a natural part of growing together. These are the people who say things like, well, if I have to change, then maybe we just aren't meant to be. On the other hand, a partner with a growth mindset sees challenges differently. They know that great relationships aren't found, they're built. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. If you tell them, I need more emotional support from you, how do they react? A fixed mindset partner often shuts down. This is just how I am, and if that's not enough, maybe we're not compatible. A growth mindset partner leans in. I'll work on that, and then actually follows through. It's a small shift in perspective, but the important thing is to keep in mind that no one comes into a relationship as a fully formed, perfect partner. Love requires learning about each other's needs, communication styles, and ways of handling conflict. A partner with a growth mindset will be willing to put in the work and see that work is a privilege, not a burden. And ultimately, that's the kind of partner who makes love last. And lastly, question 4. Can they handle being wrong? Picture a house built on shaky ground. One strong wind and it collapses. That's exactly what insecurity does to relationships. It turns everyday difference of opinion, every mistake, every difficult conversation into something unstable. An emotionally secure relationship is built on a solid foundation. They don't see disagreements as threats to their worth. They don't take feedback as attacks on their character. And they don't need to be right in order to feel valued. Instead, they approach conversations with curiosity instead of defensiveness. They're willing to have tough discussions because they don't misconstrue them as a fight for power and see it for what it is, a new way to understand each other better. For example, let's say you challenge their opinion on something important. Maybe it's something systemic like politics, something personal like parenting, or even something seemingly small like what movie to watch. How would you feel if your partner gets very defensive and snaps? You never agree with me. Why do you always challenge what I have to say? Now, think how it would feel if your partner leaned in instead, saying something like, I never thought about it that way. Tell me more. Remember, at its core, emotional security means that someone isn't looking for a fight. They are trying to protect their ego at all costs. They're willing to be wrong, they're willing to learn, and willing to grow with you instead of against you. But how do you spot this green flag early? Because it comes with a catch. This trait isn't always obvious in the beginning of a relationship. But if you pay attention, the cues are there. Simply ask yourself reflective questions like, do they admit when they're wrong? If they can say, you're right, I messed up, that's a big sign of emotional maturity. Do they ask thoughtful questions instead of shutting down differing views? When faced with a new perspective, do they get defensive or do they ask, tell me more? I want to understand. Question three, when given feedback, do they get defensive or do they reflect? Feedback is inevitable in any relationship, but the way someone reacts to it, that tells you everything. Do they listen, process, and make an effort, or do they dismiss your feelings? And last, how do they react to small moments of correction? If they mispronounce a word and you gently correct them, do they explode or do they laugh it off and say, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know? Because how we handle small corrections tells you how we'll handle big ones. And at the end of the day, relationships aren't about winning arguments. They're about understanding each other. The ability to change one's mind isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength because it shows emotional maturity, intellectual humility, and a deep respect for you and your perspective. And if you want to dive deeper, take the relationship satisfaction scale below, and I'll link it. And if this helps you, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and let's talk in the comments. What's a green flag you've noticed in relationships? Let me know. I'm Jordan Travers, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.